Good. We're live. I hope. Yeah, it looks like it. Very good. Welcome to Sunday Night Live. And again, so many problems with the electricity around here. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, I apologize. Sorry, so sorry. Anyway, I'm sure most of you went to sleep already. It's so late. Anyway, thank you for hanging in there. And as you all know, it's Sunday Night Live in the U.S. and Canada and Mexico and places like that, and it's Monday morning over here. And just as a reminder, it's at X on X and the new TikTok is at Dr. Thomas Lodi MD. All the other ones, Instagram and Facebook, all YouTube, all the other ones are at Dr. Thomas Lodi. And you all know that, all right? Anyway, the weekly the groups are working out very amazing and amazingly. So I hope you're all considering getting involved so that we can interact directly. All right, so let's start with some questions. There's something else. So one other thing is that I'm going to have a webinar on the 28th of July about the human diet. It really has to be in 3 parts, but I'm going to make the first part at least touch on everything to give it a sense of comprehensiveness. But to do it right, it'll have to be in 3 parts. But the first part because there's that's probably the most common question that comes up. What should I eat? And then you have people online who are eating, there's all sorts of diets. So I need to clarify that. And it's not that hard to clarify it. It's kind of easy. So by the way, so if you're not a member of the groups, there's a, what is it? You can reserve your seat by a one-time pass ticket. I'm not sure what that means, but go on drlodi.com and find out about this. Yeah, it's live. Rotten steam. Okay, good. All right, so the human diet will be live. It'll be a live webinar. So please join that. And so go to my website, link on my post on every social media platform. Okay, so on my posts and if you look at them, they'll tell you how to get a ticket for this. Unless you remember. I don't know much about this part. Anyway, hey there, everybody. Oh, how to fix a high spike M protein. Wow. Well, excuse me, I have to answer the questions that were submitted, but just as a quick, just as an overall understanding of it is, a high spike M protein is, it's the same type of thing that's going on with all CFCs. It's fundamentally a biochemical metabolic process that's going on, and in this case, it's taking place with plasma cells and that are producing. And anyway, it's remember, all CFCs are the same process going on in different locations. Hey, from Florida. Anyway, so that's really important to remember. So there's really nothing different about it. All right. Now, the one thing you can do to directly address that is a plasmapheresis. Usually, can bring that down, and it can bring down some other anti. We start to produce proteins that are basically interfere with our immune function, and those can also be taken care of with plasmapheresis. The problem with plasmapheresis, and that's if anyone's ever heard of it, is that's where it's it looks like dialysis, where they have a catheter in each side, and it's like an EBOO. If anyone's had EBOO for ozone, and it's basically it exchanges all the proteins, not all the proteins, but the good thing about it is you can have very small filters, so you can select out the proteins you want to filter out. So it's very good. I mean, there are times when that's the only thing you can do to help someone who's got a lot of problems. Well, for example, spike protein can be filtered out in that way. But plasmapheresis is crazy. It's expensive. It's hard to find anyone who's doing it right. But so that's why, I mean, as I mentioned that with a high M protein, but we need to really, one thing is filtering it out, but if it's going to keep being made, then we're not going to get very far. It's just going to kind of slow things down. So we've got to get to the root of it, like we do with all things. What is going on here? It's freezing. Air conditioning works too well. Okay, so anyway, if you're not familiar with it, we have three groups: the health and healing group, the parasite group, and the CFC guidance group, which is cancer, but we don't use that word. But anyway, it's almost like a private consult twice a week if you're in the CFC group, because we can talk about your situation as if we were having a consultation twice a week, and that's why I don't really do have consultations anymore, because there's no time to do them all. Oh, very good, Mara. Pleasant in Santa Rosa, California. Wow, Santa Rosa is quite a little spot, isn't it? It's got Dr. Rowan. It's got what's the fasting place there? Yeah, it's pretty amazing little town, and beautiful, and so many people eat well. It's pretty amazing. You wouldn't believe what went on with electricity this morning, but I can't even explain it. Anyway, let's get into these questions and make them a little bit bigger so I can see them. God. Okay, there we go. But okay, Marina, would you recommend getting blood work done after an 8-day fast? Well, I mean, True North. Thanks, Jeff. True North, absolutely. Wow, a lot of questions. I have to answer. Really, I have to answer these questions. So join the groups, please, so that I can answer live questions. So Marina's asking here, when would you recommend getting blood work done after an 8-day fast? Well, on that day or the next day you could, but and I'm not sure of the reasoning for it. I guess you'd want to know how well did that help, but Yes, Dr. Alan Goldhammer is the man who's the doctor who's uh, in charge up there at True North, which is I think the only water fasting place I know of in the U.S. I'm not sure, but get back to Marina's question. Um, even if you did a test, and I really want to clarify with testing. When we test, we're we're down. There's a lot of down and fear involved in testing, and that's why we test. And if you feel good after the fast, things are looking good. You could get a test. I understand how we've gotten locked into that. We all grew up in that system, and we can't help it. Eventually, we'll get past that. We won't need to be testing ourselves because we'll know how we feel by knowing how we feel. Um, but anyway, if you're just looking at what would be the best time in terms of getting the most accurate assessment of what the fast did, I would on the ninth day, right then, because you're right at the peak of it. But also keep in mind that when you're doing things like fasting and cleansing, there are cycles, and sometimes things might look like they're getting worse, and that's because of the process of healing. And so if you catch it at the wrong time, you might think that maybe not the wrong time, but if you catch it at the time when some of the numbers that you don't want to be up are up, that's not the whole story. You'd have to retest again maybe in a few days. So it really depends, and you also want to test fasting, and all the other thing is we have to, before we just do an 8-day water fast. Hopefully we've done our juice cleanse already, which is a long 3-4 week cleanse. So, but anyway, day 8 or 9, Marina, would be the best time. So Elizabeth, breast CFCs. I have a breast tumor that kept going through the last 6 months of ivermectin and fenbendazole. I'm an athlete and coach and can no longer hide it through the clothing I need to wear for my work. I have not gone anywhere near doctors. This all started exactly when my period ceased. I am 52. I am not in a financial state to be paying for anything medical, as just covering my basic living expenses is a challenge. Moreover, I am on my own with no partner or husband, no children, and no family anywhere near me. The loneliness and disillusionment of life has definitely weighed on me and taken a toll, along with a brief but abusive relationship for a few months. I'm eating 1 meal a day and sleeping better than I used to, but it just won't stop. I feel so alone and so humbled by this. I'm trying to keep it private, but with my work, soon other people will inevitably notice. But yeah, I hear that. So, Elizabeth, if you can join the groups, I know you don't have any extra money, but the one thing was, if you could join the groups, we could get you started in the right direction. And if you've been listening for a while, then you know that the problem is this is going to cost some money. You're going to have to see a biological dentist. There's okay. That's I don't know a way around that. So that's the tragedy of this whole thing is that it costs money, and that's the part of it that really has really disturbed me for a long time. That it costs money, and so much money. It's not even a reasonable amount of money. It's ridiculous. But anyway, what you can do right away is start the cleansing. We talk about this every week. I hope you listen frequently. But if you join the the group, we meet with the CFC group. We meet twice a week, right? So that gives us a chance to talk about your situation twice a week, which is like an ongoing consultation. But anyway, start with cleansing. You've got to see a biological that you've got to make sure there's not a problem there. Now, do you have any root canals, or do you have any extracted teeth? How are your gums? Are they? You know. But anyway, you have to see a biological dentist who does a 3D cone beam CT. It's a quick 20-second process, but it's horrible. It's horrible that this whole process costs money. I just I don't know. I don't know how. I have tried. I've tried my whole life or my working life to get around that. That's why one of the reasons I came here to Thailand was to try to lower the costs. But anyway, and you're gonna have to start with the juice cleanse. And now, Elizabeth, I don't know if you've been listening a lot, but I hope you have. I hope you've been listening. And if you have, then you know that a lot of things are available on the website, and you understand the importance of a juice cleanse. We talk about it every week, but it's a way of changing the water in your aquarium. It's a way of cleaning out, and it's simply done by the law of mass action. You just keep drinking these fresh juices and no eating of solid foods, 3 quarts a day, if you can, until you're peeing out of everywhere. All right, you're just cleansing and cleansing and cleansing. You're doing this 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. The longer you do it, the better it is. Because and if we want to stop that growth, which I can see right now is a main focus of yours. If you want to stop that process, you've got to just clean immediately. Now, if you have had no extractions and no root canals and no amalgams put in your mouth, you still need to see, for an evaluation, a biological dentist. It's just essential. And start on your juice cleanse. So you're on the ivermectin and fenbendazole. That's great. The ivermectin, I hope you're taking at least 12 milligrams 3 times a day, and the fenbendazole 222 milligrams 3 times a day, right? So I don't know about that's a problem. What's going on? If it's being, and about being alone. That's why if you do join our groups, you're not alone anymore. You're gonna have like lots of friends, sincere friends, people who are not trying to get something from you or sell you something. People who care, who are in your position, and we share a lot. So it's of resources, of everything. It's very important. And you can also join Kathy's Corner when you get in there, because that's part of the membership, and that's a place for us to talk about how we feel. So, but you start out with the cleanse. That's the way you do. The problem is that even that is expensive. Imagine, even the cleanse is expensive. It's crazy. It's madness. But somehow you have to work that out. Whatever your finances are, work it out so that you're going to spend some of that money, or you're going to reserve your money for cleansing. It's essential. And then you're going to have to get certain supplements, and then after the cleanse, you can eat healthy for a while, and that's uncooked. That is, if you have uncooked plant food. And that's just it. Also, if you join the groups, you'll be able to have access to Donna Baroni, who's been eating uncooked plant food for about 37 years now, and she's amazing. So, and there are other people that you have access to if you join the group, the CFC group. So the question here is, can you take fenbendazole if you have liver CFCs? Sure, you just need to look at your liver function. Many people have either less common primary liver CFCs, but at least but many people have metastatic, where it started somewhere else from the breast or the ovary or colon, and it's gone to the liver. So yes, the thing you need to look at is the liver enzymes, the AST and ALT, and if they're going up, depending on how high they are, you will have to adjust the dosage. That's all. So I know that you think having no family anywhere to help you. I mean, I understand that's probably very sad, but I can't tell you how many people have family, and their problem is the family not agreeing with what they've decided to do, and that can be so. And I want you to understand that can actually be a blessing in this particular situation. But you do need friends, you do need support, you do need love. We all do. And if you join our groups, that's what you get, plus information and knowledge on how to turn this around, right? And you join the groups by going to drlodi.com, drlodi.com, and right on there when you enter the website, you'll see there's three groups: health and healing, parasites, and CFC. Which I hope, if you're new, that's the acronym we use for the 3 words: chronically fermenting cells, which define what's going on in people who have tumors. That's what it's going on. There's no astrological signs in there. Okay. All right, from the Philippines. Fantastic. You have an excellent biological dentist over there, Dr. Ebuen in Manila, EBUEN. In fact, that's where I go. It's the only place in Southeast Asia that you can go to. So, oh, very good. So you're new. Okay, D, well, welcome. So if you go to the website, drlodi.com, you can find out about the groups. Good, very good. Excellent, Alice, thank you. So, and about this particular group, all the groups, the health and healing group and the parasite group, they meet once every other week, but there's content available, and there's other things available by being a member of the group. And everyone has access to, on Tuesdays, Darren, the kinesiologist, and Vanessa, nutritionist and yoga instructor, and many different talents. And then every other Tuesday is also Donna, who's a raw chef, and will just help you with leading a raw lifestyle. And then if you're in the CFC group, you have also access to Kathy's Corner, which is Kathy's a psychotherapist who's been with us from the beginning, and she just helps us all get clear on how we feel, and and learn how to see things more clearly. Because what happens with, and that's the problem, there's something called the rational emotive network process continuum. Rational is thought. I have a thought, which is a fact. Let's say it's a fact, okay? Now, our thinking doesn't stop there. We then make conclusions, and we say therefore. And those conclusions can be fantastic, or they could be horrible. So I could say, for example, let's say I have a small accident on the way home. Somebody hits my car with their motorcycle from behind. It's not a big deal. No one gets harmed or anything. And I could say, oh my God, therefore, I knew I shouldn't have taken that route. I shouldn't be driving today. And I could take that all the way and turn it into a horrible thing. Or I could just say I had a small fender bender. Right? I could do that. And there was this Albert Ellis is the psychologist who started kind of formalized the process of rational emotive therapy. And he, I remember seeing a teaching film of him with a woman who had she was really become disabled because of her mind, because of her psychological condition. So he had a couple sessions with her, and he found out that what had happened is she was wanting to get married. She met a man who was eligible and fit all the criteria that she thought was necessary for her. And she went out with him, and they had a wonderful time. And then he never called again. So those are the facts. She was telling herself, therefore, no one will ever like me. Therefore, I'll never find someone as a partner. Therefore, the rest of my life will be ruined. She took this all the way. Those were all the therefores. And one of the things that we need to all learn is how not to if we're going to have therefores, understand that they are therefores and they're imaginations. They're not real. These therefores are, especially when in reference to the future, are just made up. Okay, so you have to know that. You have to know that. But anyway, another thing that's so important is to get some clarity on that, because we're in the middle of our own minds. We don't really know how we're thinking. We don't understand it. And it's really helpful. And it's a whole group of us. I'm not in the group. I'm in the group occasionally, but it's a whole group of people that are going through the same thing, and it's a wonderful experience. I hear from all of them. To be with people who really know what you're going through, and can help you, tell you where they were at, and they'll show you where you're. That this particular fear might not be necessary, and so anyway, it's amazing, and you have friends, real friends. And what I like about this group is that these friendships are not based upon any. These relationships are not based upon any finances. One of the reasons I don't like money, why I don't have much of it, but is my feeling about money is that whenever money's involved in a relationship, it lowers its authenticity. It lowers the authenticity of the relationship. That's just my, that doesn't have to be true. It's just the way I see it. Okay, so that's why I don't like money. I don't like. So anyway, that doesn't exist. So with all these people that you'll meet, you're all friends. You all will help each other and without any requirements. So that's very important too. And all these people have been through it, and they're going through it, and they're going to show you how they did it, and they're doing great. So anyway, all right. Okay, so this is from Stacy. I have chronic lymphocytic leukemia. What methods and protocols should I take? My WBC is 274,000. They are telling me there is no cure. I'm 47 years old. Okay. Stacy, your white count's high and needs to come down. That is true. In terms of there being no cure, I want to help you change your understanding of that. Okay, there is no cure because there is no thing to cure. So let me explain that. the reason the white blood cell count goes up so high is that in the bone marrow, there are three areas or three types of cells that are born and released out into the system. Those are red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Okay, so the white blood cells, and there are several types of white blood cells, but they're all began in the bone marrow, and they get released at different times, depending on their particular function and the way they mature and all that sort of thing. So lymphocytes can become are the ones that become T cells, B cells, natural killer cells. So they're very important. Now, the term that they're using, chronic lymphocytic leukemia means Leuk, Leuk, which is a prefix that refers to white, and in this case, white blood cells. And then the suffix emia, which means blood. So it's not really a description of what's going on. It just is white cells in the blood. That's not really a description. But what is meant is that there are high white cells in the blood. Or there are occasions where leukemia can be the opposite, where you have very low white count. I mean, really, really low. So it's basically saying there's a problem in the blood with your white blood cells, is what it's saying. Chronic lymphocytic. So anyway, we understand what the problem is. The problem is that if what has happened is one particular clone of the lymphocytes that are being produced with chronic lymphocytic leukemia are not functional. They're not healthy lymphocytes. So it's not like you have a really high healthy lymphocyte count. So, and the reason they're being produced at their rapid rate is like they're in some clonal expansion process. So what we have to ask ourselves is how this happened and how can I stop it, right? And how it happened is the same way when we talk about breast, colon, ovary, doesn't matter, brain, pancreas, and in the blood. Thank you. Amazing. So think about what we're talking about. We're talking about a particular clone, a particular okay, there's a word genotype and phenotype. So in genotype, it means the genetics involved in a cell. What are its genetics? That's its genotype. And the phenotype is the way that genetic, those genes are being expressed. So for example, the XX genotype, we're referring to the sexual, the cells involved in sexual differentiation. The XX is a female, and every female you meet is XX. But look at all the different ways it's being manifest, right? So that's the phenotype. The phenotype is the way it's manifest. And the phenotype can change. And the phenotype can, in other words, the genes that exist in a cell can express themselves in different ways by turning off certain ones and turning on other ones. It's not, and that's how our bodies are. That's how we grow and develop. So in the uterus, when actually in the fallopian tubes, where the sperm and egg meet and fuse and become one, and then the process of migration and all that, and it finally lodges into the uterus where it grows. But that whole process of where that one cell, which has got a specific DNA, half from the mother, half from the father, they divide into 2 cells, and they divide into 4 cells, and they divide into 8 cells, and they divide into 16 cells, and it keeps doubling. And it gets to a point early on in the process just in a few weeks, where these cells, the process of differentiation occurs, and that's where this group of cells turns off all the genes. In other words, doesn't allow them to be expressed, silences them. All the genes except for kidney, and this group over here, all the genes except for liver, these genes over here, all the genes except for brain, central nervous system, etc. So that's called the process of differentiation. All right, so each cell still has the capability of being every cell, but it's turned them off. That's epigenetics. That's basically that's epigenetics. And we talk about that, with our epi means above or around genetics, and the genetics means genetics, our genes. So the epigenetic influence on genes is tremendous, because if you turn off a gene so that it can't express itself, it's the same as not having it, right? So if a gene is shut down, or it's just turned off, silenced, you don't have it. And if a gene is turned on, you have it. So that's why two different kidney cells can be completely different if they're silenced, if they have different genes that they're expressing and different genes that they're not expressing. All right, so this is very important, this whole epigenetic concept. And so what happens with CFCs, chronically fermenting cells, and I hope you, Elizabeth, that you, no, not Elizabeth, this is Stacy, and I hope you've been around for a while to understand that the CFC process, which is where 60% of the mitochondria get rendered non-functional, the cell has to go through. It has to change operating systems. It has to go from oxidative phosphorylation to glycolysis, which is also fermentation. It's got to change, because even though it's a less efficient way of producing energy, it produces energy, and it's the only other way a cell can produce energy. So that's what it does. All right. So in your particular case, this is occurring in the bone marrow, whereas someone else might be occurring in the breast, the ovary, the colon, the pancreas, right? But that's where it's occurring. And so all the problems associated with it are due to the location in which it started. So, and what the cells are used for, what their function is in life. So, yeah, so the way they look at it is, well, yes, very interesting. I'm not sure your name is there. I don't see your name on Facebook. It says, I'm sorry, I'll get back to you in a second, Stacy. It says, I'm an acute care nurse practitioner, ICU background, now hoping to ethically practice. I get it. Does your inner circle provide protocols for parasite molds? Yes, in the parasite group. But you want to do more than that too, as well. But that's a great way to start. I'm in the process of doing a trillion things and getting almost none of them done. But one of them is developing through my Singapore-based company, Institute of Integrative Oncology, start certifying people, training people, so yeah. But absolutely join the parasite group. And what's your name? Your name is Chantel. Great, Chantel. Yeah, so the meds for parasite protocol. Where can you get all these? Again, Fa, my assistant, if you go hello at drlodi.com, she can get them for you. But we're working with this group to finalize, I've been saying this for a long time, a place where you can just order them all. So it's pretty close to being finished. So, but in the meantime, she can get them for you. And then if you join our group, there's access to all sorts of resources, because all the other members of the group have all these resources. It's just it's amazing. But so getting back here to Stacy. So the particular clone or phenotype of your white blood cells that has become, that is growing without stopping, are your lymphocytes. Okay, so that's what that means. So why, how did this happen? And that's not always possible to answer. And one of the questions that comes up often is that, okay, well, I get it, but why my breast instead of my ovary, or why my pancreas instead of my colon, you know? And that question is, with any specific person, it's pretty much, we're unable to answer it. But in general, you'd have to understand that if it's happening in one location of your body, your entire body is being exposed to the same biochemical soup. But because of other issues with that particular organ, it may affect it quicker. For example, if someone had, basically had a lot of toxins that were eating up mitochondria, but they also had anovulatory cycles where they weren't ovulating, when they weren't producing progesterone, so they were very estrogen dominant. So they were estrogen dominant, and that, and they wore a tight bra, or and aluminum based deodorants. And then left or right, depending on left or right, we can look at the psycho-emotional aspects of that as well. Had a very troubled relationship with their mother or with their children, left side. Troubled relationship with spouse or employer, right side, or father. So there's so many variables that go into it. So with in your situation, we may not know, but it doesn't matter if we know what particular toxins came together in sort of like a perfect storm to accomplish this. It doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, but if we don't know it, it's okay, because we just want to eliminate it. But we do know that's what happened. We do know that. And when they say that it's incurable, they're saying you have a disease. And again, a disease means that there's this third party thing that got into you that's disrupting your life, and you have to get rid of it. And that's just not what's going on. Okay. What's going on is that you've had an accumulation of toxins over your lifetime, and for some reason it had more of an effect in your bone marrow than it did elsewhere. And you you do have other chronically fermenting cells elsewhere. We all do, not just you. We all do. All right. So, and this goes for you too, Elizabeth. So I hope you're listening. So it doesn't matter where it started. You must get over that whole Rockefeller nonsense. It doesn't matter where it started. I mean, it matters, but I'm saying that doesn't mean it is something different than, okay, the difference between breast and bone marrow in terms of chronically fermenting cells is due to the location. The breasts are where they are, they do what they do, and the bone marrow is where it is, and it does what it does. So, for example, if the apparatus for producing new cells in your bone marrow is at a nonstop proliferative phase, then that means it doesn't have the energy and the capability of producing other cells, because it's producing these at a very high rate. So it's not making it. So two things are happening. One is you're getting such an accumulation of the lymphocytes that the percentage of other cells is very low, because percentage means out of 100, how many do we have, right? So 20% would mean you have 20 out of 100. All right, so the percentage of other cells is going to be very, very low compared to the amount of these lymphocytes. And these, remember, these cloned lymphocytes are not functional lymphocytes, which means you're going to get anemic because you won't be able to make enough red blood cells. Which means, you know, those are all the meanings of that. Okay, that we need to bring that down. So the way I've done this throughout the years, and it works very easily. It's very easy to do, and that's with IPT, insulin potentiation, low dose chemotherapy. So this is one of the situations where I do use it. So I would now, while we're doing that, you're going through the cleansing. You've got to start the cleansing. You've got to start the cleansing. You've got to check your mouth. You get colonics, lymphatics. There's a lot of cleansing that's got to be doing. And then I'd begin the IPT, and I'd also begin intravenous vitamin C, and I'd have you be taking all, you know, there's a whole program to be on. And we could bring down that high white count rapidly, 2 or 3 weeks. So, I mean, it'll start coming down right away. And that's a way of using, insulin potentiation therapy is a way of using chemotherapy when you have to in a situation like this, but with minimizing any toxic effect on the body, which is really essential. Because with standard chemo, unfortunately, there's no way, it's not targeting any specific cell. It's just shotgun getting them all, and you wind up having as much damage to your healthy cells as you do to the cells you didn't want around anymore. So the IPT, we're able to target that in, and we're doing that again based on our knowledge of metabolism, of biology, and that has to do with insulin receptors and glucose requirements and all that. Just knowing the biology of things allows you to work within that, and that's called metabolic therapies. A metabolic therapy is when you are using your knowledge of the metabolism and the biological requirements of cells to challenge them. You know, that's with vitamin C, high dose vitamin C, and, you know, curcumin and some of the other botanical therapies. But IPT is not a metabolic therapy. It is a cytotoxic therapy. Cyto meaning cell, toxic meaning toxic. But what we've done is, with the insulin that we've done, what has been done for us by Dr. Donato Perez Garcia, the first 100 years ago, was using the insulin. You're able to target the CFCs very nicely. Meaning that, first of all, we're going to give a 10% dose, 10% of the normal standard dose. In some cases, 5%. And we're going to use it with insulin so that we target just the CFCs. What that means is that suppose you did not do it this way. Suppose you give the standard high dose chemotherapy, right? Okay, it would be dispersed to all cells around the body evenly, is what it would do. All right. And the reason they call it maximum tolerated chemotherapy, because it's the amount that the average person can tolerate without dying. And the reason they have to use high doses is because they want to, by the law of mass action, just to get enough of that chemo into the cells, the CFCs, as possible. And the maximum tolerated part means without wiping out the healthy cells. That's not at all possible. At all. So we're giving 10%, and 10% even to somebody without the insulin. You're not going to feel great, but it's tolerable. It's doable. We get the amount of toxins that we're exposed to daily in this modern world are probably close to that. So, however, by targeting with the insulin receptor, and that's another time we'll go into that with the insulin receptor, relying on insulin receptors and use the insulin, we're going to get most of that 10% into the cells that we want to get it into and not elsewhere. That's the important part. So what's left over for elsewhere is somewhere. So let's say, for example, we'll give a dose of chemotherapy, and 50% of it goes into the CFC and 50% goes elsewhere. All right. Now, if we give 10% of that dose, right, that would mean that the all cells evenly got it. But let's say 50% went in, like we said before, like 50% went into the CFCs and 50% didn't. So the 50% that didn't, or that did not go into these CFCs but are in the general circulation and can cause harm, is 50% of a 10% dose. And 50% of 10% is 5%. So this, what they call side effects, would be 5%. That's just an example of how to look at this. If you go to the website, drlodi.com, and look under webinars, you'll find Dr. I've done two with three actually, with Dr. Donato Perez Garcia, the third, the grandson of the man who developed IPT. Anyway, that's what I would definitely recommend in your situation. I'm not sure where you are, Stacy, but you're very welcome to come to our center in Arizona, an oasis of healing. And now, and then we begin the cleansing process too. And when these cells start, the cells will start coming down. You'll feel better because now, now you're anemic. Because I'm sure you're anemic. I'm sure it will not be as profound, and things start rebalancing, and then it gives us an opportunity to reestablish balance in your system. Very, that's what we need to do. So, Stacy, there are other places around. I don't know of any that look at diet and all of this. I just don't. If anyone knows of a place, please tell me, because I'd love to find somewhere else that's doing everything. But anyway, please call us at anoasisofhealing.com. I think they changed the number. For years, it was 480-834-5414. I think it's changed. Can't believe it. I don't know why we changed it, but an oasis of healing. Or you can contact hello@drlodi.com and have put you in touch with me so I can expedite the process. Okay, next person is Javier, and the topic is constipation. I'm 20 years old and have had constipation all my life. They are now saying it may be POTS syndrome. I had a stomach bug in December and have lost 32 pounds with malabsorption issues since then. Please help. I do have a connective tissue disorder. Don't know if there's a correlation. Okay, Xavier, and you're 20 years old. One moment, please. Excuse me, one moment. All right, back. Sorry. You know what goes in must go out. Hopefully, that's what we're talking about. Anyway, all right. So, to address your question here, Xavier, probably saying that wrong, but okay. Let's understand how the bowels work. We've got approximately 30 feet of a tube starting here and ending at the anus, or 10 meters if you're in the metric system. The last 1.5 meters or the last 5 feet is the colon. And so the process of digestion is you eat, absorb, you eat it, hopefully absorb it all, or all the nutrients and all the ingredients that were in the food you ate that were not necessary pass out. And there's a process in the gastrointestinal tract that moves things along called peristalsis, and that's just a well synchronized constriction of the bowel from higher up to lower. Okay, and that moves things along. That requires a certain amount of fluid, because during digestion we absorb most of the fluid we reabsorb that we can. It's a very conservative system. The last 10 to 15% of that water that needs to be reabsorbed from our daily intake of water is removed at the colon. The remaining 10 to 15% that needs to be removed is removed in the colon. And the colon is so, for example, when you've eaten, chewed, swallowed, and it's gone through all the processes, once you swallow it, it's called chyme, chyme, and there's different types of chyme depending on where it is in the system. Types meaning that has differing amounts of ingredients, because some are absorbed, etc. So when it arrives at the end of the small intestines and it enters the large intestines, in someone who's healthy and well hydrated, it will take about 6 hours to remove that last remaining 10 to 15% of the water. And then you're done and it should come out. So if it doesn't, what's going on? Several things can be going on. What you're eating is top on the list. Okay. So for example, somebody who eats food that doesn't have a lot of plants the plants actually have cellulose, which helps move things along, right? Because the cellulose can't be digested, so it kind of remains in there, and it pulls water in too, so it keeps it hydrated. But that kind of helps the whole peristaltic process, helps things moving along. So if you're eating foods that don't have that plants in it, then you've lost that contribution. The other thing, there's a few other things that can happen on the transit time from the mouth down to the colon, and that is if your small intestine is has leaks in it. You've heard leaky gut syndrome. If you have leaks in it, then you on top of the whole process, you're going to be absorbing things that you don't want to absorb, and that's going to be causing your body to have reactions to it, like almost like what you'd think of as an allergic reaction. Your body has to eliminate it. For example, we cannot absorb more than 1 amino acid. So proteins are made of at least 100 amino acids. So when you break them down into single amino acids, you can absorb those. So if you haven't adequately broken them down, then they cannot be absorbed. Now, if you have leaky gut, though, and maybe 3 or 4 or 5 amino acids still connected are absorbed, that causes a problem in the blood. Your immune system has a big problem with that. Okay, that's why you can't, when we think of eating protein, you're not eating protein. I mean, you're you're not going to absorb the protein that you ate. Your body's going to break it down into its constituent amino acids, and then you'll absorb those. So it's like collagen. When people are taking collagen supplements, your body cannot absorb collagen. If collagen entered your blood, you'd have an anaphylactic shock. You'd be sick. You'd be very, very sick. So to make use of the protein we've got to break it down into amino acids. So it's a lot more efficient to eat foods that are either already broken down into amino acids, or there's much smaller groups of them, peptide groups. Anyway, so there's that aspect. You can also absorb toxins. You can absorb bacteria that were in the food, or heavy metals, or anything. Okay, so that leaky gut can be a big problem. Most people don't drink enough fluid. Now, we often talk about water. You need to drink X amount of water per day, but if you think about it, a plant is what, 95% water. So you're getting a lot of water. So if you drink a vegetable juice, fresh vegetable juice, you're getting water with some nutrients in it. It's pretty good. So during the day, when you're living and eating healthy, if you're eating healthy, you won't eat for about 18 hours, which means, and you're going to stop eating 4 to 5 hours before sleep, and you're going to sleep at 9. So if you stop eating at 4, that means your first meal can be at 10, and you will have not eaten 18 hours, which is excellent because it gives your body a chance to replace itself and restore itself and all that, and get rid of toxins. But during that 18 hours, you can be drinking lots of water. During the 6 hours that you're eating, you can be drinking nutrient water, like juices, etc. Now, if you're doing a juice cleanse, then of course you don't just eat during 6 hours. During that juice cleanse, you're going to drink juice from the time you wake up until about 5 p.m. so that you don't stay up all night going to the bathroom. So the point I'm making here is about being well hydrated. Sometimes, and it's not infrequent, it's frequent, that just by increasing the amount of water you intake can help with constipation. Now, the other thing is there can be conditions where your ability, that peristaltic ability of the gut, can be hampered, can be damaged. So I'm not sure what's going on with you. Now, you say you have a connective tissue disorder. Connective tissue disorder is another term for autoimmune conditions. And and basically it's the way the Rockefellers explain this is that the body is attacking itself. It's producing antibodies that are attacking the very structure of the human body. So the immune system is pretty stupid, can't figure it out. That's the implication. But that's not the case. The immune system wouldn't do that. There's no reason for the immune system to do that. What it's doing is it's identified something that we haven't quite figured out, and it's going after it. Because it would never just go after the body. So if you have a connective tissue disorder, that could be a systemic lupus erythematosus, which is lupus. It can be there's many different autoimmune conditions. Rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune. So I don't know which cells are involved in your autoimmune condition, but what that tells us is that your immune system is unbalanced. And usually with connective tissue and autoimmune, we're looking at what are called Th2 instead of Th1. The difference is Th means T helper cell. So if the system can be Th1 at one side, Th2 at the other side. That's kind of like the polarities. So if it's Th1 dominant, that's the one we want. That's the balance of the immune system that we want, so that it's ready to go after and eliminate anything that acutely is causing a problem. If it's Th2 dominant, then it won't be doing that, and there'll be a lot of problems will start to accumulate. And that's usually what we see with connective tissue disorders or autoimmune disorders, is Th2 dominant. So we want to restore the immune function. So if I were working with you, we would start with the same thing we always do, which is a good thorough cleanse, and a good juice cleanse for you would be fantastic. I would recommend doing a juice cleanse for 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. Fresh vegetable juice, 3 quarts a day, 3 liters a day. No solid food. And that'll give you a lot of hydration, probably more hydration than you've had for quite a while. And it'll be giving you really important, uncooked, pristine nutrients from that juice. So it's a highly nutritive process. It's not like fasting, which is water, where you won't be getting any nutrients. You'll be getting all the nutrients that you need, except for fat and fiber. But it's a very important part for what you're going through. And rather than looking for another name to put on, see, these names for diagnoses are to diagnose a disease are just more and more myths that are going to disturb your process of restoring balance. You need to restore balance. If your immune system is balanced, you're well hydrated, your hormones are balanced, you won't have constipation. And neither we have heart problems. Neither we have. So, and we've got to understand that you're singling out one effect, which is the constipation, which is obvious to you, but they're very likely there are also many other problems going on that you're not as focused on. Okay, now you say you've had it all your life. It means that you were born constipated, or developed later on. Because that would be strange, since babies usually drink milk or at least some other kind of, right? I don't know. Their terms, I want to get away from them, but they want to give you a new one, POTS, right? Now, I don't know what your connective tissue disorder is specifically, but POTS is another one they say there's no cure for. They don't even know what it is. Postural tachycardia syndrome, meaning when you stand up, you get a rapid heart rate. Well, that happens to a lot of people with autonomic dysfunction because it's the autonomic nervous system that causes the arteries to constrict or not, the little small arteries, the arterioles. So when you go from a sitting position to a standing position, if the arteries in your legs, the little arterioles in your legs, don't clamp down and prevent all the blood from going into your cells, what will happen is that just from the gravity, the force of the gravity, the pull of gravity, it'll pull your blood. It's like the blood will be in your feet and not circulating in your head, and you'll fall down. But to compensate, what does our body do when it has less blood volume? In order to maintain the flow of oxygen to cells, it will increase the heart rate. That's a normal process. It happens also to people who are dehydrated.
So I don't know your situation at all, but you've got to do a juice cleanse, and then when you come out of the juice cleanse, you got to be still be drinking juice and water, so that you're getting at least 3 liters a day, 3 quarts a day. Dehydration is very important. So I'm not sure why you were. Are you saying from like early childhood or anyway? Um, that's why it's great if you join these groups. You could join the health and healing group. That way, I could talk to you more about your particular situation. But fluids, you got to eat after you do the juice cleanse. Start eating plants. And the best plants, the way in which you eat plants to extract the most nutrients from it is to eat organic plants, and then don't cook them, don't heat them. This whole problem could be resolved. Now, you say you had a stomach bug in December, and if you lost 32 pounds with malabsorption, we often use that term. We've grown up with that term of having a stomach bug, a stomach flu, stuff like that. That's never, ever been, I don't know where they came up with that. I don't know. I don't know where they came up with that. I think what they mean is not necessarily the stomach, but the gastrointestinal. So I have a gastrointestinal bug, which they usually refer to as a virus. If it was a bacteria like Salmonella, Shigella, you know, one of the forms of E. coli, if it was you would have lots of diarrhea, and it might even be bloody. But if it's not that, then they're calling it a virus, and we don't even know if viruses exist. And on a close examination, it's pretty clear that they don't. But anyway, so we often say that when we're not feeling well, we are nauseous or vomiting or diarrhea, we say that we got a stomach bug, which normally we didn't get any sort of bug. What happened is that we've eaten foods that were not, our body didn't want, that rejected. So that's what you got to do. Juice cleanse. 6 weeks. At least 4 weeks. While you're doing it, go to a good colon therapist and get some colonics. Do at least one a week. I do twice a week for a while. 2 colonics a week, doing a juice cleanse, and you're going to start clearing all this stuff up and restoring balance. And then we've got to look at other parts of your body that might be toxic too as well. So there's a lot of work to do, but this is how you can get started. And if you join the health and healing group, we can talk to you directly. This is Mariella. January 2025, I was diagnosed with enlarged fatty liver. Sugar level 198. Gassy, colon, and digestive issues. Heavy metals, low level on all hormones, and hard time losing weight. I have been on carnivore diet since. The carnivore diet. I have been on a carnivore diet since. Taking lots of supplements and brought my sugar level to 113. And I'm feeling better, but I still not 100%. I do not take meds, only holistic. Only holistic herbal capsules prescribed by my holistic doctor and supplements by my integrative doctor. I'm wondering if you would suggest that I do a parasite cleanse and heavy metal cleanse, since I have 7 mixed metal implants in my mouth. Okay, Mariella. You went on a carnivore diet since, and your sugar's down. So, okay, carnivore diet is usually wow. That was. Are you guys still on? Whoops. Okay, Instagram, are you guys still there? Yes. Yeah. Right, you guys? Good. Okay. Wait. Oh my god. Here we go. Okay. All right. All right. All right. Cool. Okay. Oh my gosh. And I okay. So let's talk about that. The what you said. And is it? It's Mariella. So a carnivore diet. What people usually mean by a carnivore diet, it means they're eating only animal, right? Only animals, dead animals. So that's where we have to. If we're going to start, it's important for us to understand and use the proper vocabulary, the proper words, so that we understand. Because the words are how we understand. It's what our perceptions are. So if we look at a carnivore, which are the only obligate carnivores, are cats, the cat family from lions and tigers, panthers, leopards, house cats. They eat animals alive. They don't eat the corpse. I mean, what they'll do is they'll kill it, and either while it's dying, they're starting to be eating. They start eating it, or immediately right after it's dead, depending on the situation. So, but that's a carnivore diet, and they eat everything from nose to tail. And it's still not enough for them, so they do chew different kinds of grasses and plants. Eat, but they get most of their botanical intake, their plant intake from the undigested portion in the animal that it's killed to eat. They get it's still in its intestines, so they'll get that. And the reason they need the plants is because a pure 100% nose to tail carnivore is still not going to have all the nutrients they need for life. So, dogs, raccoons, bears, rats, there's a few others, are what we call scavengers. And they can eat either plant-based foods or animal-based foods. So they're called a scavenger, and they can live on either one. So a dog is a scavenger. In fact, you could raise a dog on a vegetarian diet. You could not raise a cat on a vegetarian diet. They're an obligate carnivore. But anyway, so even eating dead animals would qualify as a carnivore diet. But eating dead animals it's tricky, because you're going to have to eat the heart, you're going to have to eat the glands, you're going to have to eat all of the, the kidneys. You're gonna have to eat the kidneys. You're gonna have to eat the lungs. You're gonna have to eat the adrenal glands. You're gonna have to eat the the ovaries and the testes and the brain, spinal cord. You need to eat it all if you're gonna get all your nutrients. And that's very difficult for humans to do. It violates our fundamental instincts, so it just doesn't happen. So you're on a sort of like an Atkins diet. Robert C. Atkins, remember the Atkins diet? That's basically it. Which was a modification of an earlier diet that had been used in the UK for diabetes. It's a great way of lowering your glucose intake, which is clearly what's the benefit that you've seen. But you can do the same thing without the poison. You see the difference between eating a carnivore, eating animals, dead animals, is you're getting amino acids, which make up protein we were talking about, but they're coming in a package of fats and other nasty stuff that we don't need. Whereas if you're getting your amino acids or proteins from plants, they're coming in a package of chelated minerals and vitamins and phytonutrients. So they're coming in a better package, a healthier package, easier to deal with. So you could be, you would have just as your sugar control would be just as incredible. Even in a person who's what they call diabetic, who's highly insulin resistant, glucose can come under control easily within 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks. So I think what you need to understand is that eating an animal diet is counter to what you're trying to do, which is a detox and cleanse, because you're getting a lot of toxins. So it's counter to that. In a large fatty liver, you don't get from plants, unless you're eating cooked carbohydrates, like potatoes and stuff like that, rice, bread, pasta. But I mean, eating plants, just eating plants, you're not going to get it. When you start processing them and cooking them, yeah. So now your heavy metal problem, and you've got these teeth in your mouth that are, I mean, you've got several places of how many in your mouth? Anyway, so your sugar level's high, you're gassy, your colon, digestive issues. You need to clean out your colon. You need to do a cleanse. Clearly, Mariella, it's really, you need to do a juice cleanse. Now, a carnivore doing a juice cleanse would have to be blood. And I'm not sure how one would go about drinking blood for three liters a day, but anyway, I wouldn't recommend a carnivore juice cleanse, but I recommend a plant juice cleanse and clean out your body and get colon hydrotherapy and get it all cleaned out. You're going to feel so much better. And your digestive issues, all that will really come around. Low level on all hormones. So I'm wondering, are you, what your age is? And when you say all hormones, are you talking about thyroid and pituitary hormones, or are you just talking about the sex hormones like estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone? So we need to know that, right? So for example, when you said that you have a hard time losing weight, well, there are could be many reasons for that, but one could be low on thyroid. And if you're low on thyroid, then you're like 99.9% of us, because you're not getting enough iodine. And anyway, so yes, you need to clean out. 4 to 6 week juice cleanse. Get 2 colonics per week. then it 7 mixed metal implants. Yeah, well, that's, as you know, anyone who's heard me for a while realizes that there are no pure metals that are put in the mouth. Not gold, not titanium, none of that. They're alloys, and alloys are mixtures of metals. So the titanium might be 40%, 50%, 40% titanium, and the rest is aluminum and other heavy metals. Gold is not pure; it's got other metals in it. When you have two metals in a saline solution, which is our saliva, you produce a battery. The battery produces electrical charges and currents that disrupt the normal, healthy, required currents in our mouth, which affect our whole body. Remember, because every tooth is on a meridian and has it's connected to certain organs. So yeah, that's so clearly you've got the answers, Mariella. You've got to get those implants removed, replaced with zirconium by a biological dentist. You've got to start your cleanse right away, and not eating animals. Do a juice cleanse. Start that right away. Get 2 colonics a week during this 4 to 6 week period. At the end of that 4 to 6 week period, you'll be a new person. So your question was, do a parasite cleanse and heavy metal cleanse. Well, you can't use chelation therapy to get rid of the metals, heavy metals in your body, if you still got them in your mouth. It doesn't make sense. You could be starting on a chelation program, which can either be intravenous or oral, or both, while you're having your amalgams removed. So you've got to have, or whatever, amalgams or implants, you've got to have those removed and replaced by a biological dentist who knows how to do it the right way. Because doing it the wrong way, you can wind up with even more problems. But yeah, you would do those concurrently. The parasite, you could wait till after the juice cleanse. So, yeah. Okay, so for the heavy metal, you'd go to a doctor. They could do disodium EDTA, or they could do calcium EDTA, or they could do DMPS IV. Or you can take these orally. You can get oral EDTA. You can get oral DMSA. So the oral DMSA, you could do 100 milligrams. No, actually, you could do 500 milligrams to 1,000 at night when you go to sleep. And you do that at the beginning when you go to sleep, because when these heavy metals are being moved, sometimes it makes you feel kind of, so that it's better when you're sleeping than when you're awake. Not always. I'd say the majority of people don't feel anything. Some people feel it. But so DMSA is, I think, fairly easy to get. Probably Jeff Bezos has some. That would be a part of the heavy metal detox. But if you haven't removed the source, then it makes no sense. You've got to eliminate the source. So for you, it's pretty clear cut what you have to do. Right? Join our groups, Mariella, so we can interact. I went later because I was so late to begin with, and I'm so sorry, everybody. I apologize. Okay, now, but if everybody's willing to hang in there for a little while, let's do that. This is Angela, iodine. Okay, hi, Dr. Lodi. I'm taking iodine as part of my prevention plan to stop CFCs. Had a breast mastectomy 2 years ago. Oh, to stop your CFCs returning. Have had it confirmed. I've hypothyroidism, low thyroid. I've been taking 2 iodine tablets a day for a while, which have not prevented it, sadly. Should I cut iodine out or reduce it to low? I'm taking levothyroxine. Wow. Okay. So Angela, that's an excellent way to. That's an important part of preventing CFCs from rearing their heads again, or and it, there we go. Okay. Anyway, but that's not all. That's not. It's far from all, but it's one thing. It's one aspect of it. There's a lot more to that. But with regard to iodine, now the reason that we have like pandemic, low thyroid functioning is because we're not getting enough iodine in our diets. Just simply not getting enough. We have had in the past 150 years ago we did. We don't anymore. So not all of us did, of course, but the environment was more suitable to one getting their iodine needs met. Now it's basically impossible unless you eat a lot of sea vegetables, wakame, dulse. There's lots of sea vegetables, seaweed, and they will provide biologically available iodine. So iodine comes in 2 forms: iodide, which is an anion, and iodine, which is it was 2 iodines together making molecular iodine. We need both types. So Lugol solution provides them in probably the best formula you can get, and it's been around for 180 years, so pretty trustworthy. But while you're taking iodine, it does lower thyroid output, which is why it was used to be used for Graves. Graves is the opposite of what they call Hashimoto's. Hashimoto's is autoimmune hypothyroidism, whereas Graves is autoimmune hyperthyroidism. In neither case is the immune dysregulation the cause. In both situations, it's iodine. But so if you give iodine to someone with Graves who's making a lot of thyroid, it'll slow down their production and get them back to normal. But that wasn't enough for them. After Rockefeller came on board, we had to use not just iodine, but now radioactive iodine. Yeah. So anyway, so you need to be on iodine, but iodine is not going to quickly increase your thyroid output. It takes about 1.5 years to replenish your iodine stores. But during that time, while you're replenishing them, since the reason you're taking them in the first place is because you're low on iodine production, you're low on thyroid production, you'll need to be taking iodine. But that also it suppresses thyroid output. So the way you deal with that is you take the iodine as necessary, but you take enough of a natural thyroid to keep your body temperature. And we have to rely on body temperature as a measurement of thyroid function. Okay, and it's much more accurate. So your body temperature, we mean your axillary body temperature in the morning before you get out of bed to go to the bathroom, because that's your basal body temperature. And you do that 3 to 5 mornings in a row, and then you take the average. And if it's less than 97.8 degrees Fahrenheit or 36 degrees 8 Celsius, if it's less than that, then it is what we call subclinical hypothyroidism. It's a low thyroid function, which means we're going to have to be taking a T4, T3 supplement. That's what thyroid gland produces, T3, T4. So if you're on levothyroxine, which is only T4, it's a synthetic T4, you're not getting the T3, and the T3 is the active hormone, whereas T4 is a circulating prohormone that gets converted to a T3 when it's needed. So if you're getting only the T4, you may not be able to convert them properly, which is why I would never give just a T4. But in addition, you'll be taking selenium and other things that are necessary for that same process. So, Angela, I hope you are doing a lot of other things, not just this. Okay, so, I feel like a spokesman or a salesman for my groups, but I don't. I like them. They're doing what we want them to do. They're really helpful. And then Angela, we've got so many more things for you to do. This is one thing if you get that one straight, but there are many things you can do. So the answer is don't cut out your iodine. You need to be taking now if you're taking levothyroxine and you don't want to take a natural supplement like Armor or Westroid or Thyrovance, if you don't want to take that for some reason, and you want to just take the synthetics, then you'll have to get, in addition to the levothyroxine, is the Cytomel. Cytomel is synthetic T3 in the right proportion. So you have to have your doctor who prescribed the levothyroxine also to prescribe the Cytomel, or take neither of them and just get on the Thyrovance, which you can order online. And you start out with 75 milligrams in the morning, empty stomach, and you keep doing that every morning for 7 days. And then while you continue to take it in the mornings, you do again another basal body temperature average, and you see where you're at. If you're still below, you need to take another one. Okay. So, but you're doing great, and I want you to be not. I'm going to make sure you're doing everything possible. So, Cytomel be what you take for T3. Okay. No. Hi, and this is Nick. I have an enlarged prostate. I saw your video about ivermectin, benzol, and antiprotozoal, and I'm willing to try it. I live in BC, Canada. I would like to know how and how much to take and how long. I am 76 kilograms. Please help, doctor said to me, noting can be done, or nothing can be done except surgery. Well, these guys are just stupid. They're just stupid. I don't know how else to say it. Is there another word? No. Stupid. Stupid covers it pretty much. Okay, they're stupid because there's many things you could do. And surgery, you know what? When in doubt, cut it out. Good. Incredible. User 2458. That's a strange name. Thank you. Not the glasses. All right, Nick. An enlarged prostate happens to all men as they get older, mainly because initially is because their testosterone output is down. They therefore don't have a very strong libido, or and sexual function decreases. So they wind up having not ejaculating and not being able to empty their prostates, and they get enlarged. There's other hormonal changes too that happen, you know, with dihydrotestosterone, and so, but yeah. Now, enlarged prostate. Now, ivermectin. Okay, well, there is a woman in one of our groups whose father had large worms come out with an enlarged prostate. In fact, even had some prostate CFCs, and these worms came out, and they were all better, and the prostate went back to normal. But we cannot assume that that's the only reason causing prostate enlargement. All right. So now, so you would need to get, some testosterone, and they're going to look at your PSA and all that. They're going to get confused about whether or not they should do that. And actually, they shouldn't be confused, because there's a Dr. Morgenthaler who is a urologist at Harvard Medical School. Harvard, one of the. So he attended there as a student, and then as a resident, and now as an attending physician. So what? Now, if they say you have enlarged prostate, does that mean they didn't biopsy it, and that's how you know it's just enlarged and there's no CFCs in it? Because if they biopsied it, that's already a problem. But anyway, an enlarged prostate can eventually, because of it's just not, it's congested and there's no flow, it's going to wind up having a CFC problem. So what they usually do is they put you on androgen deprivation therapy, which they knock out your thyroid, so your testosterone production. So, the ivermectin is 12 milligrams 3 times a day, and the fenbendazole is 222 milligrams 3 times a day. But you should be doing a lot of other things too, Nick. But pretty much, doctor, and you got to tell your doctors this. Another reason for just you overall not being as happy as you used to be will be because of low testosterone. So, Dr. Morgenthaler started something called the Androgen Society, along with another doctor. And they do a multidisciplinary, in-depth, constant review of androgen therapy. And the consensus, at this point, of all the studies, shows clearly that testosterone does not contribute to prostate CFCs, number one. Number two, taking it even with CFCs is not going to be a problem if taken correctly. These are very, very important things to understand, because if your husband or if you would be put on androgen deprivation therapy, everything problem that you're talking about would get worse. $10 to $15. Yeah, one of the other problems was in 2013 is Dr. Vegan. By the way, it's spelled Vigen, not Vegan. Dr. Vegan published a study in the American journal, I think JAMA, I can't remember, Journal of the American Medical Association, where he showed that testosterone replacement can cause problems with heart. So that now everybody's convinced no testosterone. And then but Morgan Taylor came along and has shown that's not the truth. And what we now know about androgens is that they make the heart stronger. They make the brain stronger. They make the muscles stronger. So a lot of stuff, the mythology that's out there, unfortunately stays, is still out there, but it's not true. But that would help you tremendously as well. So the yeah, just to let you know that there was a study in 2016 called the testosterone trials, where they had like 790 men over 65, and they proved unequivocally that it improves everything: weight loss, sexual function, libido, mood, muscle mass, everything. It does not cause problems. So that kind of is the data. It's a large enough study, and it's been repeated. So I'm not sure. We also have now. Yeah, there's a lot more. I just want to say a couple other things about this. Yeah. Okay. So, and at this point now, many doctors who are like up on the research are waking up and realizing you can you need to restore hormone balance in men just like you do in women. All right, and that's what this is. So it's very important. And then again, remember, at least 21 times a month ejaculation to keep it flowing. All right. Um, that's the data. So your enlarged prostate surgery, you don't even go with this guy again. He's not even good at his incorrect stance in his position. He doesn't even understand his own terrible uh, position on it. He doesn't know what he's doing. The enlarged prostate. Welcome to the world of maleness over the age of 50. That's what happens. Unless you keep things flowing, keep it flowing, and keep your balance of all your hormones and your other parts of your body. It's just that's what it is. It's keep maintaining that function and that flow. Um, this is who's the person? There's no name here. But anyway, CFC prevention. I am on Cellcept and IVIG for an autoimmune necrotizing myopathy, statin induced according to this pathologist. Was only on statins for 3 months. And it is well known that people on Cellcept can get CFC's lymphoma. I don't want to be on these any longer. What would you check? I've tried to keep my CK levels increase. All right, listen. This autoimmune necrotizing myopathy induced by statins, what you need to do is to clean out your body. You've been poisoned. You've been poisoned. And they're continuing to poison you. Now they're giving you IV immunoglobulins. And I don't know what they're doing at all is in any way helping at all. So I'm not sure if I don't have the picture of your whole condition, so I can't tell you what to do. Join our group and we can get into it. But basically, an autoimmune necrotizing myopathy. So in other words, the immune system's stupid and it's going after the body. Anyway, so you've got to do a 4 to 6 to 8 week juice cleanse, colon hydrotherapy, go to sleep early, get your hormones balanced, not unbalanced. And if you're taking statins because your cholesterol was high, first of all, cholesterol is necessary, but we only need the cholesterol that our bodies make. It's not a vitamin. We don't have to take it by eating animals to get their cholesterol. Okay, we need the amount that we can make. Your immune system it's been challenged by in ways that we can identify and in ways that we haven't yet been able to identify. But regardless, what we need to do is just clean you out. Because I don't know your whole. You've got to come on the groups, or because I've got to ask you many questions. But I can't answer any of these. I can't really give. It's kind of a serious situation you're in here, and I can't really give specific advice on it unless I have more information. All right, so I'm not sure how to do that unless you come on. Okay, so the main there's a lot of great questions here. I won't have a chance to answer. There's one question here. Is the juice cleanse protocol available? Basically, I would recommend if you don't have a juicer to get a Nama juicer, just because you can put large amounts in. It's easy to clean. But the fundamental basics recipe is celery, cucumber, spinach, and kale. And then you can add to that if you want plants. And then lemon and apples. And make it as delicious as possible without making it too sweet. But make it sweet enough to enjoy it. And drink 3 liters a day. And don't eat any solid food. You can modify that. It's just a good way to start because the celery and cucumber give you the volume of fluid. And then between the kale and the spinach and the celery and the cucumber, you've got all the amino acids you need. And you've got phytonutrients, you've got chelated minerals, you got it all, except for fat and fiber, like we've discussed. Okay, so anyway, it's 10:16 now for me, which means it's 10:16 for you guys in New York. Anyway, I would like to start next week with the next person here, Latasha, because it looks like she's got a lot of stuff. And so please, everyone, send in these questions so we remember the format here on the Sunday Night Lives are for me to answer questions that have been sent in previously. And then the format on the groups is you ask questions spontaneously at that moment, and I can ask you, and we can interact, and we can turn it into a consultation. We can do that weekly, so it's well worth it. Anyway, so Wadi Kap and namaste, namaskar, and aloha to everyone. And thank you for waiting. I'm very sorry. Someday I might have to move. I might have to move. Oxalates. Okay, Debbie, we will talk about oxalates. Remind me next week. I'm going to do it again. Oxalates. It's another one of the absurd scare tactics. My God. All right. So I promise you. Okay. And I'll explain it. I'm glad you brought that up because most people are freaked out about it. Anyway, aloha. Sawasdee kap. How do we do this? We do that. Yeah. And we do